Warning. In order to truly understand the game that you're about to be put on, you have to expect more 3D from the 2D access you currently have to the world. What's good, y'all? It's 2022. Happy New Year! Nah, for real. Shout out to y'all for making it this far, because things have been crazy out here in the world, just in general. So by now you've probably heard about NFTs, and even in the slight chance that you haven't, I guarantee you somebody that you know has. I mean Jay-Z, Maroon 5, Tory Lanez, Waka Flocka, even Eminem getting in on it. Instead of allowing yourself to be left behind, you're being dope and resourceful for letting me talk to you about the underlying technology. So what is blockchain? A blockchain is a decentralized network of nodes or computers that all have superior processing power, which allow them to communicate with each other and to also store blocks of information within a unified ledger. So think about it as a grid of information capable of taking on all of the complex things that our apps and softwares do today with all of our smart and just advanced powerful devices. If you notice, none of these nodes are bigger than the other. All of them are talking to one another, and that allows for this unified effort of whatever the smart contract is, programmed to make the computers do. So the difference here is that this decentralization eliminates a lot of traditional worries of data manipulation and security by using programmable code such as a smart contract, which can not only run this really complex software, but it also keeps your data and identity encrypted in a pseudo-anonymous manner, as well as it keeps a public ledger or public record for everybody to be able to see and review. Let's bring the board back one time for the one time. So here I have the more centralized model drawn up. I'm a young Picasso, obviously. Anyway, we have the centralized nodes at the top, or the centralized authority. All of the nodes that actually contribute data, aka our data, from Web 2 apps that we use, we don't know what exactly they're doing with it. So it's just feeding nothing but into the source. These nodes here, they're communicating just enough with each other just to keep the infrastructure going. But as far as what's happening once it makes it up to the top, we don't necessarily have control over that. And that's what's scary about operating in a Web 2 space. For the sake of contrast, let's compare this concept of blockchain and decentralization with the US government, which we're more familiar with due to its centralized nature. So we have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. Power is physically centralized in Washington, D.C., although we do have state and local governments, which I guess you could think of as nodes in a way. Admittedly, they're already kind of lamer than decentralized nodes because they have to answer the federal decree up in Washington. Let's compare this with blockchain, which in practice equally distributes its power amongst the nodes that are located in the network. This means that no one area of the world has more power over, say, Ethereum. No one area of the world has more power over Bitcoin and such. Because of this, there's also no federal over state blockchain per se. Nah, that doesn't happen here. Participants of all levels are equally weighted in influence amongst the blockchain. So let's kind of talk about how this compares to the branches of government now. We'll start with the judicial branch because it's obvious what they do, interpret the laws. Big wigs, big left, big right energy, occasional moderate independent, but that only distracts from the major parties' counts. Shout out to Mr. Griffin, if you ever watch this. But tell me, have you ever directly elected a Supreme Court justice? Cut it. We elect the representatives, who then elect the president, at least if they're acting in good faith of their constituents, or us. And then the president selects a nomination to fill a vacancy. The vacancy has to be ratified by Congress. So by now, a lot of conflicts of interest just in that process of heading up the levels, down the levels, and around the levels is taking place. However, with blockchain, as far as interpretation of the law, or code in this case, networks defer to people that actually use it. Therefore, actions of the community directly inspire initiatives and changes based on the citizens of that blockchain, which is once again us, as opposed to bigger powers and more centralized authorities. Which means that in order to enact a fundamental change on blockchain, a majority of these different nodes involved all around would have to log this change in order for it to be eventually passed on as the new way. This is called a soft fork versus a hard fork, exemplified live in time in the book Out of the Ether. This book details the genesis of Ethereum as well as details the 55 million ETH heist, or about $600 million. The heist that almost took down Ethereum, stopped it in its tracks, along with the major development that is Ethereum, which of course would have derailed a good bit of blockchain as well, in terms of ethics, as well as just practicality. So we're kind of bleeding into the legislative branch with all this talk of amending and power of the purse. So let's talk about crypto and its federal pixie, more like anti-fairy, the Securities and Exchanges Commission. Just for the record, I'd say the FDIC is a little more pixie than anti-fairy.
How is that possible? Must I break it down for you? Yes, break it down. It would be criminal if you didn't.
So, the SEC and the FDIC were born out of the ruins of the stock market crash of 1929, when the public, of course, through the Great Depression, didn't really have that much faith in banks anymore, so the US government kind of stepped in and established a sense of financial fair play. Fast forward some 90 years, and we have Bitcoin, the very first mainstream peer-to-peer money system using a blockchain. Now stay with me. Bitcoin nodes all around the world have been verifying transactions since 2009 by using a 256-bit cryptographic hash, which keeps people's true identities hidden. You see, with a blockchain, you're able to conduct your money business without worrying about a bank or the Fed adding on their crazy fees for who knows what, while of course giving you a nice little interest rate that doesn't even keep up with the rising rate of US inflation. So, all of the little things that suggest that the US's centralized banking system has never exactly been optimal. The good news is I don't even have to go as deep on the executive branch because it's a great concluding point. If you've noticed the central or decentral theme of all this, power is reserved to the many instead of the few, and any project on blockchain that doesn't reflect that at the core level, spreading out to its grassroots and constituents, isn't operating in the true essence of blockchain. So thank you for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, perils about the world. Anyway, if you found any of this informative or helpful, feel free to like, share, subscribe. There's going to be a lot more coming soon. I'm learning with you guys. You're learning with me. We got to be trained up for Web 3.0. Peace.
Taking things in stride, I'm on Corey, don't slide. Please don't worry, I'm chilling where I reside.